I've spent almost 2 days making a batch of sourdough bread, and I'm not going to shape it before I bake it. Hey, that's a pretty good rhyme. You might be thinking, is this guy insane? Well, maybe, but that's besides the point. And for context, what exactly is shaping your bread? Well, shaping is the stage after you mixed your dough and you've let it ferment over time. You lay your dough out and you shape it in a way that will help create surface tension before you put it in a bread basket to proof. Theory is that this will help the bread form a nice structure so that when it's baked, you'll get a lot of oven spring and it'll rise up instead of flattening out. And it helps the inside of the bread develop in a more structured way. But I want to put that to the test today. Does it actually benefit your bread? I'll be honest with you, I love to shape bread. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole process. But I've often wondered, does it really matter? Well, this is a baking experiment and we're going to put that to the test. Let's go. Today I've got a bowl of dough, and this dough contains 3 loaves of bread. For 2 of these loaves, I'm not going to shape them at all. I'm just going to separate them, weigh them, make sure they're the right quantity of dough, and I'm just going to put them in the bread basket. For the first one though, that's going to be my control loaf, which is going to be shaped like I normally would shape. So I'm just going to go through really quick and make sure that these are all the right size. Perfect. Perfect. And since these two are perfect, this one's got to be perfect, right? All right. That only makes sense with the math. I've got 3 bread baskets here, 3 loaves of dough. I want to see what happens when you don't shape your dough. So let's find out. Let's put it to the test. So with this first one, I'm just going to put a little rice flour down in the banneton. And I'm just going to pick this up and plop it in there. And that's it. For the second one, a little rice flour, which helps prevent it from sticking to the banneton. And I'm just going to plop it in there. Now for this third one, I'm going to actually shape this one. My favorite part of making bread is shaping. And I have a little unorthodox way of shaping my bread. As you can see, I do the double triangle, as I call it. All right, so this one, a little bit of rice flour, plop it in there, and I'm going to stitch it up. And that's it. So this is the control loaf. It's been shaped, it's been stitched. These are the 2 wild cards. I don't know what's going to happen with these. As you saw, I've just plopped them in there. And we're going to see how these turn out once they're baked. I'm going to cold proof these overnight in my fridge like I normally would. So about 12 to 18 hours. If you like this content so far, please give me a thumbs up or maybe even subscribe. It helps my small channel out quite a bit. So I'll see you in the next segment. And we're back for day 2. These have been proofing in my fridge for about 16 hours. I'm gonna bake all of these at 450 in a Challenger bread pan. I'm gonna score each one across the top with a functional score, and we're gonna see how these turn out. So this is the control loaf. This is the loaf that I did shape. And looking closer at the control loaf, you can see the stitch marks from shaping, risen, about the same size as the others. This one looks pretty close to the control. This one was not shaped, it was just plopped in there. And then this one, it's got this seam down the middle. It's kind of bulging at the sides. It's not evenly dispersed throughout the banneton. I'm really curious how this is going to turn out. Let's start with the control loaf first and get a baseline for what we want our bread to look like. So here we have the first loaf, the control loaf. I'm going to score this. And I'm only going to do a functional score down the middle. Well, I'll add a wheat stock. This is a small one. And let's bake this up. And here's loaf number 2. You can see this is the one with the seam down the middle. All right, so my first observation is that it just kind of, you could see it just kind of flop out a little bit. Just do one score down this one, just a functional score down the middle. Let's see how it bakes. This is loaf number 2. And last but not least, we have loaf number 3. I'm just gonna do a functional score on this one like I did with the other ones. And here we go. So the results are in. They've all finished baking. And I gotta say, at first glance, this might be a little controversial. So let's take a look. I'm gonna start by going over the exterior of these 3 loaves, and then I'll look inside at the crumb for each one. So here's loaf number 1. All right, this one looks like your typical artisan sourdough loaf. It has some nice oven spring to it. Very nice color. You can see the ear of the bread here. It's got a nice crust, very crunchy. This one looks pretty good. I'm going to measure how high this is. About 5 inches high and about 8.5 inches wide. I gotta say, this looks like your pretty typical sourdough bread. This is the one we shaped and we did the functional score on. Let's take a look at loaf number 2. So loaf number 2, here we go. Okay, so to the untrained eye, this looks pretty similar to loaf number 1, except some of you may notice that it is a lot more flat. And also there are some ruptures along the front and along the bottom, and one right here. Whereas in loaf number 1, we see it hold together really well as it's baked. There's no ruptures anywhere except for the functional score. So let's measure this one. I'm curious. It does look a lot wider. So this one is almost 10 inches wide and it's 4.5 inches tall. So not as great of an oven spring as we got on the first one. The color on it looks really good. It's still nice and crunchy on the exterior, but it is a lot more flat and has a bunch of random ruptures around it. Here's loaf number 3. Okay, so this one is noticeably flatter, to me anyway. There are ruptures horizontally across this one. We don't see the same ruptures along the bottom, but there are random ones just kind of on the corners, I guess you could say. And these all bake for the same amount of time with the same amount of preheating. So it's interesting that this one is a little lighter in color. As far as dimensions go, this one is about 9 inches across and 3.5 inches tall. So the oven spring on this one was very poor compared to the first loaf. So just looking at all 3 loaves here, you can see that each bake got a little flatter. You can pretty clearly see the difference what shaping does to the exterior. You have your very classic looking artisan bread here, and then you have these 2 flatter ones. Now to the untrained eye, these might not look all that different, but they certainly look different to me. What I'm really curious about is, what do the insides look like? These have all been sitting for a couple hours now, so I'm gonna cut these open and see what the crumb looks like. So starting with loaf number 1. I don't normally cut bread sitting down like this, but I'll give it a shot. Here's the inside of loaf number 1. That looks good to me. It's very evenly distributed air pockets. This is a 70% hydration dough. Here's loaf number 2. I'm really curious what this is gonna look like, because to me, I feel like with not shaping your bread, that's gonna have the biggest effect on the crumb, but let's see. So honestly, not bad. The air pockets are very evenly distributed. It's not dense. It's very soft. It's not gummy at all. The only real criticism I have of it is it's, kind of flattened out, but that's not a huge deal at all. It would still be a great slice for toast or sandwiches. Interesting. Let's take a look at the third loaf. This is the flattest of the three. This one, I mean, it's not bad. It's, all things considered, the fermentation is pretty even. You do have kind of a bigger air pocket here. That's okay. It does look a little dense though. Like if you look at that, it does look a little dense on some of the parts, like right here. Again, the biggest criticism with this one is the pieces are going to be pretty flat. Very narrow sandwiches and toast, but that might not be a big deal to you. This was very interesting to me. I honestly thought that shaping would have a much bigger impact on the crumb. And I guess technically you could argue that just putting the dough in a banneton could count as a very minimal way to shape your bread, but honestly the difference is not that great as far as the crumb, and it's definitely noticeable on the exterior. You know, with all of these loaves that were not shaped, there's ruptures all over the place, and the color is not as great. It doesn't have that nice classic artisan look to it. Now here's where you can see the biggest difference. Here is the shaped loaf and one of the unshaped loaves. So when you compare those two, you can see this one just looks a lot better as far as the shape of the bread goes. This one is very narrow and flat. So I feel like this is a pretty controversial topic just because the results weren't as obvious as I had expected. But I'm curious what you think about this. I would love to hear from you if you could put your thoughts or comments in the comment section below and let me know what you think. I will say that shaping bread is my favorite part of the process, and I love having consistent results, especially if I'm looking to make a lot of bread and give it to people or sell it. I want to have consistent results each time. I don't want to leave it up to chance that my bread might not turn out because of not having a proper dough structure due to lack of shaping. This experiment was a lot of fun for me and honestly kind of eye-opening. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Happy baking.